it's here. A video that you've been waiting ages upon ages for me to see, for me to redo. And that is ranking the seasons once again. People have been asking me for so long to say, hey, what is your updated ranking? What is your updated ranking? What is your updated ranking? And I'm like, my God, calm down. Let me think of it. And I think I finally have it now. And prepare for some controversial opinions from, the master of controversial opinions, myself. But anyways, I am Luke the Ninja, and today in my 2020, this is the 2021 update of my ranking of all the Ninjago seasons. The Island. This installment just straight up sucked. Let's be honest here. Was there even a story? If there was, the way it did it was so incredibly bad that I'm wonder, were the writers even trying? I mean, to be fair, this season wasn't trying to be anything spectacular. And that's okay and whatnot. But at least have a somewhat good story if you're not going to try. But the island didn't really do that. The island's purpose was to set up Seabound. But it didn't really do it that well, as Seabound kind of felt like its own story. It didn't really reference the island all that much, other than Wojira, the Keepers, and the Storm Amulet. That's it. Nothing else. So yeah, this installment can rot in the depths of hell for all I care. Secrets at the Forbidden Spinjitzu. Ah, yes, I remember this. I remember the day when that Teletune trailer was leaked and everyone went nuts over this. And yeah, there was a lot of controversy about the season from just basically looking different, because this community for some reason hates difference, I guess. But even with that, there was a lot of new changes made to this season. New format, switching from 22 minutes to 11 minutes. New animation studio from Wheel Film to DHX, now currently Wildbrain. And I don't know, it just pretty much had to do everything. The writers essentially had to start from scratch. Everything had to start from scratch. And while I didn't expect them to nail it on the first try, obviously, the hate garnered from this season was massive. People just downright despise this season. And while I do agree this season is overhated, that doesn't change the fact that this, or at least doesn't change that, in my personal opinion, this season pretty much sucked as well. Just not quite as bad as the island, because at least Secrets kind of tried to do something with all these new formats, whereas the island didn't even try to be good. Day of the Departed. Yeah, there was a lot of hype surrounding Day of the Departed, as it was originally called Return to the Villains, and had such a very unique concept with old villains coming back to haunt the ninja. Oh no! But unfortunately, due to the delay of the Liquid Ninjago movie, for some reason we still don't know, this short was dramatically reduced to just 45 minutes. And it definitely didn't deliver. And I can't really blame too much on the writing team for this. They pretty much had to withdraw all their season plans and basically cram them into 45 minutes just for the sake of a movie delay. Which feels kind of petty, if you ask me. because I believe David Shane, the writer of both Day of the Departed and Season 7, Hands of Time, could have done something really, really well with this installment, but due to factors outside of its control, this led to the disappointment known as Day of the Departed. This is going to be controversial, and I'm going to be surprised if I somehow live through this video. Skybound. Yes, I know a bunch of people love this season to death, but I'm one of those people who absolutely dislikes it. Well, I don't dislike it anymore, but I think it's just meh now. It's not really anything to scream about. Now, I could see why people like it. Nanakana Jin is a good villain. The development for Jay, or at least what you think is development, was pretty good. And it did help strengthen Jay and Nia's relationship. But if you really didn't care about romance, does this season really even exist? And let's be honest here. I don't know. This season never really clicked with me. The whole romance ordeal, I just never really cared for. And honestly, in my version of Skybound, Jay and Nia would have actually broken up forever, because I honestly didn't see the point of them being a couple post Skybound. I just didn't see the point. And Nanakana I do think is good. However, he is too overpowered for his own good. And also, I really didn't like the first couple of episodes of the season. They were, by God, awful. And also, Jay's reason for wanting to get Nia back seems kinda petty, if you ask me. It's basically, oh, the future told us we would be together, so I need to make sure that happens, or else I'll be a worthless loser, essentially. And this is not even including the elephant in the room, the controversial end. Yeah, the ending has sparked a lot of controversy in the community, because a lot of people believe that it's bad because of the ending, and a lot of people believe that it's good because of the ending. It's one of those love or hate things, and I'm kind of sort of in the middle. I can understand why people like this ending. This ending is unique. I will admit that. It is unique. But people have to remember, just because it's unique does not automatically make it good. It has to be executed well. And I just don't think it was executed all that well in this case. I really don't like the after effects of the final wish, where the whole season essentially is reversed, basically, to make it look like nothing had happened. And honestly, it's just kind of wasted my time, honestly. And you know what they say, wasted time is wasted money. And I honestly feel that this was kind of a waste of money, honestly, because a writer should never ever end that way, because it's pretty lazy, if you ask me. It's basically the go-to of, I don't know what to end the story with, so I'll just end it like that, because I don't know how to actually write an ending, or in this case, I don't know what the ending should be. It's just like, why? And what kind of drives this even further, in my opinion, is just that only Jay and Nia remember the events. The only way you could have justified that ending, honestly, is if you let everyone remember it, because then it would have made sense. But no, we have to force the idea of Jay in there. Blech! Shut up. Blech! I don't know. Sorry about my rants. So, yeah, this season, it's not terrible, but it's not legendary as people claim it to be. Another controversial pick, Sons of Garmadon. yeah, honestly, this season pretty bored me to death. It was incredibly boring, honestly. And, I can kinda understand what the story was, but the problems started with me partially is due to the fact that 2018 was not a good year for me personally, and I'll go further into detail about this. But in case of the story, some parts of the story didn't exactly make the best of sense. Like, for example, in the episode Snake Jaguar, how in the world did Harumi contact Ultraviolet to rat Zane out? Like, explain. And I don't know. It just feels like the story doesn't really pick up. Or at least when it does pick up, it's kind of at a point where it's almost over, essentially. And I'm not a huge fan of Harumi as a character. Her motives, to be honest, are a lot more flawed than a lot of people think. She just seems to have a petulant attitude and way too high expectations. I understand that she believes Garmadon to be a hero. That part I understand, and that part I believe is the only part about her motive that makes actual sense. Everything else, to me, you could kind of basically counter-argue, essentially, why it makes no sense. And this doesn't even begin to account a drastically terrible decision of bringing Garmadon back. Like, why? His story was completely done. It was done. What was the need other than bring him back from the movie? And even the movie isn't a good excuse, because to me that just insults movie fans into thinking, oh, they don't watch the previous Ninjago seasons after the movie, because there was a gap between when the movie released and when SOG first released, like about a 3-month gap. You're telling me that you assume that movie fans don't rewatch the past seasons to get caught up? That's incredibly insulting to those people. It was a horseshit decision that should never have been done in the first place. And honestly, a lot of people say that Season 8 made Lloyd stand out a lot more. I heavily disagree. I think it made Lloyd a lot worse, in my opinion. Because Season 7, he actually had a really good arc with his whole becoming a master thing. Now he's just given the title of master, and honestly that pisses me off. And I never really liked his connection between him and Lame Rumi at all. I just never liked it at all. It didn't seem good. It seemed kind of forced, honestly. And, it just made Lloyd look like an easy to manipulate person instead of the strong leader that he once was back in the earlier parts of the season. And those last 2 episodes, they were completely unnecessary to the season. I'm being honest here. The true ending in this season, in my opinion, is Dread-on Arrival. Screw Big Trouble Little Ninjago. That finale is ass. And I'll pretend that it never even exists. At 12th is, ironically, Season 12, Prime Empire. Let's be honest here. We all know why this season was so immensely popular when it first came out. Season 11's failure. Season 11 was such a fail that we expected pretty much anything better. And when Prime Empire came out, oh my god, it might as well have been the most popular season ever. But when we look back on it, it's like, meh, it wasn't anything too spectacular. I mean, sure, the atmosphere of Prime Empire looks beautiful, the animation's awesome, And I love the video game aesthetic. I'm a gamer myself. It runs through my blood. But this is one of those cases where I don't know. But let me get back on track. This season focused a lot on its side characters, but not really so much on its main characters, which is kind of a big problem for this season. They aren't called main characters for the reason. They're the main characters, so you should always focus on. And even though this was marketed, quote-unquote, as a J season, it really wasn't. He didn't really get development until the final episode. And even though Superstar Rocket J was kind of cool, it only lasted for like a short time. And Detective Zane was at least hilarious, because he's my zany baby, obviously. But I don't know, this season just didn't really have that. The story was okay, but the problem is that it tried to focus too much on its side characters rather than its main ones. The ones that, actually are important to the world of the show, whereas side characters only appear every once in a while, or in the Wild Brain era, they appear once and then they never reappear again. Yeah, there were like 3 side characters that were focused on: Scott, Okino, and Racer 7. Scott was so hyped, but he led to be such a disappointment. Okino was great. He was great. And Racer 7, she was cool. But like I said, they aren't called main characters for no reason. You prioritize them first, then the side characters, not the other way around. Marchionne. You may be kind of shocked that I placed Marchionne a lot lower than I usually did. And yeah, I was shocked about that myself. I was, honestly. But while I did enjoy Marchionne, the plot was kind of hit or miss, honestly. And it's kind of in that same vein as Data Departed. It only had so much to work with and so much to work around, essentially. It only had 4 episodes. And in the US, it was actually premiered as a movie, even though some of the edits were a bit awkward at times. And the Cole's Fall thing I don't view highly on anymore, because it really led to nothing, since he just comes back literally an episode later. And I really don't understand why Nia had to do it, because Zane literally did nothing in Marchionne. You could have at least given him that. You already had your yin-yang thing, which, again, led to nothing, essentially. And while I do think everything leading up to the last episode was cool, the last episode is easily the most flawed, because of the sheer absurd number of plot holes in endings. That's why a lot of people view endings as one of the worst episodes in the history of the series, because of how many plot holes there are. The biggest one that I think most people complain about is Kai holding the golden armor. He should have died right there. But I think Tommy cleared that up and saying that Zane, because of Zane's sacrifice from years ago, the golden armor was weakened so that anyone could hold it, I guess. And the Tornado of Recreation, as it's called, I really didn't understand why everyone needed to be involved, or else it won't work. I really didn't understand that, because it's been performed with only 4 ninja for the only 3 amount of times it was used. Why did Lloyd, Nia, Wu, and Garmadon need to do this? Like, I understand that, they need to do something big, but was this really the way to do that? But that's just me. I really, really wish, though, that it could have been something more. It really could have been something more, honestly. Hunted. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Oni and Dragon trilogy, and yeah, I'm shocked at myself for saying Hunted is now the best one, but only by a slim margin. Very slim margin. And what carries Hunted for me is the Resistance plotline. It's very good. It deserves to be its own season. I really didn't like how 2 seasons were basically clumped together into one. This is why I'll always call Hunted a quote-unquote try-hard season. A try-hard season, in my opinion, is kind of in the name. A season that tries too hard to be good. And let's be real here. If the first round plot was its own season, I bet more people would have loved it more than it already is. The first round plot was kind of boring, honestly, because it didn't really do all that much. It didn't really develop any of the ninja. I mean, maybe that wasn't the purpose, because it was supposed to develop Wu, but that didn't really come until halfway through, where he became Teen Wu. You know, everyone loves Teen Wu now, but hey, stupid, you gotta have faith, you gotta have faith, you gotta have faith. Shut the fuck up, Wu, I get it. And, I mean, his memory stuff was cool and whatnot, but at least Paul Dobson had amazing acting throughout that plot. And it was nice to see Iron Baron die. That's what you get for killing Ultra Dragon! But Iron Baron could have been way better. And I'm really upset that he wasn't viewed to his fullest potential, mostly because he was essentially overshadowed by Garmadon and Harumi. And I'm glad that girl Harumi died, because I didn't like her. And a lot of people think that Garmadon's development in Season 9 is groundbreaking. Groundbreaking my ass. He doesn't even develop that much throughout Season 9. He just learns to have emotions, which wasn't even shown that much in Season 9. It was shown more in Season 10 than it did in the entirety of Hunted. And that's me being honest. And honestly, I do like the messages of this, which is it was basically endurance. That's the one word I would describe this season, is endurance. I will say that was a good aspect of it, but these two stories needed to be their own separate things. You can't smush them together. It's like just putting a bunch of squiggles or something and calling it art. Like, that's not how it works. Tournament of Elements. Yeah, a lot of people would expect me to put it way higher on this list, but hey, at least it made it in the top 10, so be grateful. I recently rewatched this season with my friend Overlord1469 in his watch parties, so thank you for making me rewatch it. And while I did enjoy it, obviously, there's a shockingly absurd number of plot conveniences in Season 4, where things just happen for the sake of it, instead of having a reason for why things happen. I understand that sometimes you just can't think of a reason for why a certain thing happens, so you just write it and make it convenient. That's fine if you do it, once or twice, maybe even 3 times. But using it any more than that just gets absurd. And the absurd number of plot conveniences in Season 4 is astounding. People still say this is the greatest season of Ninjago. Not even close. I think people confuse the words great with innovative. I do agree that this is probably one of, if not the most innovative season of Ninjago. However, it's clearly not the best, just because of that. There's quite a number of flaws that I have with it. I really think that some of the Elemental Masters had no personality and no character. So, they most likely could have been removed and nothing really would have changed. Also, Skylar is an incredibly bland character. I am so angry that out of all the elemental masters they chose to focus on the most, it's this bland bitch. And speaking of that, why didn't they try and balance the development over with some of the elemental masters? Why do they all have to put all of their development into one and basically say screw you to everyone else? A lot of people also think that this is a Kai season. That could not be further from the truth. It's a team season because everyone really had a role. Everyone did something. And I do like this season. It's good, but it's not legendary as people say it is. Legacy of the Green Ninja. Yeah, Season 2, I think, should be praised a lot more. Yes, the first half was a bit iffy, but some of them made sense, and some of them were fine episodes. Like, Child's Play was a really good episode, even if the next episode after is the most broken episode in the entire series. But once the Dark Island stuff comes into play, it goes from 1 to 11 real fast, and it's awesome. We get introduced to basically the most famous side character in the history of the series, Misako. We get to see the Overlord, a really good villain who needs to be praised a lot more, especially with his voice acting. And we get to see more of the Garmadon family dynamic, which I really did like, because it was essentially, I'm pretty sure there was a soundtrack name for this, A Family Divided. It really was. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see that play out. And at least some of the ninja got something. Like, Zane got to see his father again. And there were some funny moments too, like Cole being Michael Jackson for a minute. I'm sorry, I had to. But yeah, then we come to like the last two episodes. Oh my god, my pre-pubescent mind could not handle those two episodes when I was a kid, because they were so damn awesome. Even at 18, I'm still wondering how my brain didn't explode back then for all the sheer awesomeness. And the final battle, even though a lot of people have criticized it a lot more, I can understand somewhat, because it's not as action-packed as other scenes. But they gotta remember, this was 2012. This was when animation wasn't at its peak. It wasn't nearly as good as it is now. And, yeah. It also began the kind of, sort of meme of how to beat the Overlord by T-posing! I had to mention that. But Season 2 really needs to be praised a lot more, even if it had a rough first half. Master of the Mountain. Yeah, this was when the Wild Brain era started to gain good momentum. After a disappointing first season and just an okay second one, they needed at least a somewhat decent one to gain some momentum. And they did that with Master of the Mountain, the first Cole season. Hallelujah! And it was amazing to see, finally, our Rocky Boy Cole finally get some noteworthy development. And it was so awesome. And I really did like how the ninja kind of went on their own separate adventures, even if some were better than the others. Like, I never really cared for the whole Nia and the Murtessa thing. And also, Lloyd didn't do shit in this season. Let's be honest, he didn't really do anything noteworthy in this season. And there was Kai and Lloyd with the geckos, because geckos are the best. Especially with, Zane constantly throwing rocks at Kai, which is hilarious. And also, I really like, Chancellor Gulch. He's just funny to me. That's why I really like the Trial by Mino episode a lot. Unfortunately, this season does suffer from a very weak middle, especially from the real fall. But it also brought us some good side characters in the form of the low lead / up lead, even if nobody really cared about Fungus or Corcoran and just Blundar. And there's also Vanya as well, can't forget about her. And we also had a pretty good villain with the Skull Sorcerer, even though he was somewhat of a letdown at first because a lot of people wanted him to be Klaus, which I was one of those people too. Don't get me wrong, it made perfect sense to me back then, but I did like King Vangelis for who he was. I loved his voice, and the fight between him and Cole at the end of season 13 is just awesome. Unfortunately, this was the final season to air when Kirby Moore was still alive, as he passed away only a couple months after it finished airing in the United States. So, rest in peace. Rebooted. This season gets so much hate for such a silly reason. Let's just get the skeleton out of the closet right here. The love triangle. I hate it. I don't like it. It's terrible. It was so badly done. But in the long run, it was a good thing. I pointed it out in basically as insanely dumb as it was completely necessary. It was necessary development, just done in such a horrible way. At least it had good conclusions with the Cole and Jay fight in Tournament of Elements, and Neo was rectified somewhat sooner than later. And also Zane's development in this season was great, even if Lloyd somewhat took that, because Lloyd kind of took it with his golden power stuff, which, kind of lasted a bit too long in my opinion. And originally this season was only meant to last 2 episodes, hence there was an argument of criticism towards season 3 and how it, quote, ends 3 times. Well, there's a perfectly good explanation for that. As I said, the writers were unsure of how many episodes they really wanted to make rebooted. It was originally 2, then to 4, then to 6, then to 10, and they finalized it with 8, from what I've heard. Which is interesting because it really shows the basically developmental hell that this season went through. Because remember, this season was never meant to happen because Ninjago was supposed to end in season 2, Legacy of the Green Ninja. So this season was never meant to exist. So they kind of had to sort of rush through it a little bit. But even what we got was pretty good. The Surge is still regarded as one of the most liked premiere episodes in the history of the series. It still has the most viewed trailer, I think, out of all Ninjago trailers, at nearly 8 million views on YouTube. And we can't forget about the ending. The ending made 80% of the audience cry their eyes out, including mine. Because Zane was that character that nobody hated, but they just kind of forget that he exists. And when he gets the spotlight, this scene perfectly showcases his character. Perfectly. I might actually make it to a video called Scenes that Showcase a Character Perfectly. And basically, it really developed Zane in such a positive way. I can't begin to describe. Man, this season rocked. Hands of Time. Yeah, you may be shocked that this season, out of all the other ones, has made it into the top 5. Hear me out. Yes, I know what you're gonna say. The animation did suck. It didn't look rendered all the way. But that was because this season, at least, wasn't planned to be released in that specific moment. It was originally going to be Season 6 and then the movie, or Season 6 and Return to Villains, and then movie to fill out the rest of 2016, but of course, things got sidetracked. And I love Achronix and Crux. They're completely criminally underrated villains. Yes, the dialogue was kinda cringy at times, especially with, "It is time to rule!" Oh my god. Sorry. But you can't really blame the characters for that. That's a completely script thing. I want to talk to whoever wrote that line, though. But even with that, the storyline in Hands of Time was so good. Let me compare this with Tournament of Elements. Hands of Time's storyline basically has a justification for everything, whereas Tournament of Elements barely has justification for anything. And the only thing that really didn't have justification was how Ray and Maya got captured by Crux. Because Ray and Maya had their powers, Crux did not. All he had was a sword. I mean, sure, he threatened their children, but, like, couldn't they have just fought back? But still, the story was good. Yes, it was slow at times, especially in the middle with scavengers, line in the sand, and the attack. But once you move past that point, it adds a little bit of depth and mystery to it. I really love Kai. Kai is so awesome in this season, finding his parents. A lot of people criticize this arc because it's just, quote, him looking into a helmet the entire time. I say, so? You don't really get the whole meaning behind him looking into the helmet. He's trying to figure out where this symbol comes from. And he finally figures out that it's his parents. And then we get basically the best scene Kai has ever had, in my opinion, with him fighting his own father. That perfectly showcases his character perfectly. But anyways, this season I wish could have had a sequel. This season definitely deserved a sequel. Damn you, Lego Ninjago movie, for ruining those plans and giving us a mediocre season as a result. Possession, a fan favorite, of course. It had to be up high on this list. Man, I love Moro. Moro was such a he was such a G. And, you know, even a lot of people really don't like him for him being kind of emo-ish and whiny. Don't stereotype emo people. Just saying, don't stereotype emos. But his backstory is incredibly tragic because he was essentially filled with just a bunch of jealousy. It's because he was believed to be the chosen one. I am the Green Ninja! You made me believe! Jeez, Andrew Francis has good acting. But anyways, the story with, you know, the ghosts and stuff was great. Cole turning into a ghost himself was shocking. Nia becoming the water ninja, even if it didn't really lead to anything in the long run, was great. Ronin, he was good. I just feel like Shadow of Ronin should have been canon. I really don't understand why it's not canon, but I'm getting sidetracked. But anyways, there's just a lot of good to talk about, and I really did like it. It was just so awesome to watch everything play out, and, you know, other than the stupid Cloud Kingdom episode, everything else was pretty damn good. The pilots. Now you may be thinking, oh, that is incredibly unfair. You're just liking it because of nostalgia. False. Well, kinda true, but also kinda stereotyping. Yeah, sure. But I just love the simplicity of the pilots. They're so good. Yeah, I can definitely see why people want them to be longer, but I wouldn't change the story because of that. The story itself fits within 2 episodes. This is how you create a story that fits a limited amount of time, unlike Day of the Departed and The Island. And I just really loved it. We get introduced to everyone else. It's just so awesome to witness. And, you know, it was the installment that brought Ninjago to us as we once knew it. And without this installment, we wouldn't have all the other ones that people praise now. And I cannot thank it enough. Seabound, the most recent installment of Ninjago. I know, it takes up the silver medal on this video. You might be thinking I'm placing it way too high, but hear me out. After the immense disappointment that was the island, the next season had to have been something great in order to sustain my love, or at least made me think that my love for Ninjago is not completely dead, because I was questioning whether to just quit Ninjago forever. So I was like, if this season's not good, or at least not decent enough, like Master of the Mountain at least, then it's over. I got that and then some with this season. I mean, Nia finally got her own season. Thank God. I was waiting for this for ages. Just like we did with Cole, finally got a Nia one. And honestly, she should have had a season way sooner, but better late than never, I guess. We had a great villain in the form of Kalmar. Giles Panta does such a great work with him. And we had an equally good side character in Benthomar. He is awesome. And honestly, the development for Nia was so insane. I just loved every second of it. And a lot of it was not Jaya based. Was not hit about her relationship with Jay, which was awesome, because a big criticism I had with the relationship was that that's basically their entire characters in a nutshell. They are a couple. But this proved me wrong, honestly, that Nia actually did have a character. And the fact that she had to sacrifice her own humanity, essentially, to save her friends, and she essentially became a water goddess, was just awesome. It shocked me to my very core. And I did not expect that type of ending. And it reminded me of the Titanium Ninja episode. I did tear up a little bit. And I was just so amazed by it. I literally, after I watched that, I was shaking. I was talking to my Ninja Legends friends. I'm like, "Are you shaking because of it?" And they were like, "Yep, we are." We weren't sure if we actually saw what we saw. It was just, what the absolute fuck. And yeah, this was the final season for Kirby Moro as Cole. Hopefully, whoever plays Cole next, hopefully it will recast. Whoever plays Cole next will do Kirby proud. As I once said, rest in peace. And of course, if you knew me, this was gonna be easily number one. Rise of the Snakes, the very first season. In media, there is a very specific rule. The first season is always the most important one, and this couldn't be this could be truer than in Ninjago's case. This season, I can't begin to tell you how good it is. The development was so good. The balancing was great. Everyone had something to do. Garbodon, even you can't classify him as a villain. Him as an anti-hero was just badass. Wu was awesome. Lloyd was awesome. Nia was awesome. Falcon was awesome. True Potentials were awesome. This was the time to be a Ninjago fan. And there was the Green Ninja mystery. This was when Ninjago was basically at the height of its popularity, because it came out at just the right time. We were talking about it in school. We were like, oh my god, who's the Green Ninja? A lot of people had their theories. They thought it was Kai. They thought it was Jay. They thought it was Zane. They thought it was Cole. Maybe it could have been someone else entirely. But then it turned out to be Lloyd, which disappointed a lot of the Kai enthusiasts out there. My gosh, everything in this season was done basically perfect to a T. And for that reason alone, it takes my #1 spot as my all-time favorite season. And I don't think that there will ever be a season as good as Season 1. I do not think so. Seabound came in credit pretty close, but it had some mistakes, whereas Season 1 basically had 0. Man, I needed to make this video again, and I really hope you guys liked it. Sorry if I ranted in a couple of parts, but I noticed that it's a lot easier to talk about seasons you don't like than versus seasons you do like. It's very weird, honestly. But anyways, what are your rankings of the seasons? But it's pretty much going to be different from mine, so don't argue in the comments, alright? But anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel by clicking the red subscribe button, and click on the notification bell to see every video that I will upload. And I'll see all you folks in the next video. Bye bye!